welcome to Musicians' Life Stories. My name is Tom Wiles and I'm a drummer from the UK. Today I'm delighted to have Mr. Ralph Salmins joining us on the show. Ralph is one of the world's greatest drummers and musicians, and we had a lovely chat last week about his work in the music business. I hope you enjoy this chat with Ralph, and we had a lot of fun. So I hope you can have a nice cup of tea or coffee and or a can of Coke and enjoy this chat. So thanks, guys, and here we go with Mr. Ralph Salmins. Hello everyone and welcome to Musicians' Life Stories. This is the second episode in the series where I speak to kind of successful musicians in the music industry. So my name is Tom Wiles and I'm a drummer from Sevenoaks in Kent. So today I'm delighted to have Mr. Ralph Salmins joining us on the show. Ralph has worked in a huge variety of musical situations as a session player, touring drummer, educator and composer. Some of the work Ralph has done includes working with Van Morrison, the Waterboys, Bjork, Paul McCartney, Dave Migden, Aretha Franklin, Will Young, all of the major London orchestras, the BBC Big Bands, many West End shows and 180 movie scores. Ralph was also involved with leading an ensemble of 1,000 drummers with Paul Clavis and Mike Dolbear for the opening ceremony of the 2012 Olympics in London. So I first came across Ralph when I attended a percussion conference at the Royal Opera House. When I think I was about a 16-year-old drummer. I didn't really know what I was doing, to be honest. I was I'd played a bit of drums in church, but I wasn't really playing musically. I could sort of keep time, I guess, and just do the basics. But I remember being really inspired by Ralph's playing and his really kind of infectious groove and that real high energy he had behind the kit, and he was kind of taking chances as well. He wasn't just sort of playing it safe, which I thought was quite cool. So Ralph very nicely mentored me as part of the Amy Winehouse Foundation, as part of Amy's Yard, which Rowan Carnahan was leading at the time. So Ralph very kindly gave me a few lessons, and I sat in with him on a big band session at Angel Studios, which is sadly no longer there, but that was with the TV presenter Bradley Walsh. He was doing like a Christmas big band album, which he was singing on, which is pretty cool. So yeah, without further ado, please welcome Mr. Ralph Salmins. Hello, Ralph. How are you doing?
Hey, Tom. Thanks for that lovely intro. I'm really well, thanks. I'm great. I've just got to correct you on something. I don't know if I would describe myself as that successful. Working musician.
But you're very humble, but you've done a lot of great stuff, and I think a lot of drummers are inspired by you. So, but yeah.
That's very sweet of you. Well, thanks for those kind words. It's really nice to chat with you, and I love having this opportunity to get ourselves out and connect with as many people as possible. And while we're in lockdown, hopefully a lot of young and up-and-coming musicians can check out what we're doing, and maybe we can spread a bit of know-how and experience and help people.
Yeah, that's great. I think the drum community is really supportive here, and in general, I think we're kind of happy to trade licks and stuff, and like we don't get too precious about saying, oh, I play this groove this way, whereas like guitarists and stuff can get a little bit funny about that kind of thing, can't they?
I think what's really lovely about the drum world is there is a sense of community, and everyone helps each other, don't they? We help each other get on. It's not competitive. It's not for me anyway. I love it when my colleagues and my friends are doing well. They get a great gig, or I see them playing there amazingly. And also, I've got some really close friends who are great drummers, and we've supported each other many times, cried on each other's shoulder many
Yeah.
times over the years. So it's a lovely thing, and I love to pass that along and try and help and support as many people as possible if I can. So it's good to have a chat about stuff, and yeah, let's just have a bit of fun and talk about stuff, and hopefully people enjoy the chat as well. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely, and thanks again for making time to come on the show. So before we kind of get, I guess, before we get into the formal questions which I prepared, I'd be interested to hear kind of a little bit. So I think, am I right in thinking you're in France at the moment, and you're kind of doing a little bit of recording work for clients? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I'm down here. I spend some time down here, and I just happened to be here before the lockdown
Sure.
came in to force, and we kind of thought, oh, we better. We've got to make up our minds where we're going to be for the lockdown, and we decided to stay here. And where we are. We're kind of in the middle of nowhere down in southwest France. It's very quiet. Life wasn't that much different under the lockdown, but lockdown came up quicker here, and it's been released quicker, so we're out of it now. Everyone's walking around shops, the markets are open and everything, and it's been nice. And so I'm lucky enough that I've got a setup here, a recording setup, and I've been doing some recording. My teaching has gone kind of online, and I'm doing some online teaching, which has been great, really positive, and kept all my students moving. And yeah, I'm just hanging out. I've got a lot of free time, which has been lovely. So I'm hooking up with my family and doing a lot of things, cutting a lot of grass, doing a lot of DIY practical stuff around the house. It's been really nice.
Yeah.
Hey,
Alan Titchmarsh, you're taking
Alan Titchmarsh. Yeah, I wouldn't put myself in that league, but I mean, I've been trying to keep the garden at bay for sure.
Yeah.
So it's been nice. It's been good.
Oh yeah, great stuff. So I know you're a drum professor at the Royal College of Music, and you teach drum kit at the Guildhall. So how's it been? Is it been a bit different teaching those students online, or is it kind of the same as if they were kind of in the room with you, if that makes sense?
It has been different because I before the lockdown I'd never done any online teaching, and I wasn't quite sure how it was going to work out, but it has worked out pretty well. I must say we've managed to keep it going. The sound quality has been pretty reasonable, even though my internet connection down here isn't amazing, but it's been okay. And because I've got a drum set up, I can demonstrate things. It's worked out pretty well. So I'm happy with it. One of the things that I'm often doing is when people come up to my studio in Welwyn Garden City, we record, as you know, we've done it, you and I have done that too, but we record ourselves and then we listen back, and we haven't been able to do that in real time. So what I've had a lot of my students do is get themselves to record themselves and then send it to me, and then I have a listen and we can talk about it, and that has worked out really well. So if they haven't had recording setups, I've really encouraged them to do that, and they've got it together brilliantly. So that's been nice, and in general we've got a good rapport going on. I've got through my teaching, and with most people it's been good. So basically a positive outcome. Have you been doing online teaching, Tom?
Yeah, that's interesting to hear. I've got a student tomorrow actually, and I've got one or two next week. So I've got about 2 or 3 online students, and some of them are regular, and then others are more like occasional when they have something they want to look at. But I'm looking to do a bit more of it because I'm getting used to using Zoom now for like my podcast. So maybe I should look into it. So, but I found it a little harder without being in the room, because sometimes if there's a technical issue, you kind of need to show them, like with the wrists and the fingers, and if that makes sense. But
it's more difficult, isn't it? I mean, I just try and get myself in the camera, demonstrate it, get a pair of sticks, and then show stuff, and then if necessary, I'll just go and sit at the drums, and you know that the thing with Zoom about turning original sound on, which is what I've got. Do you know that setting?
You can use it so that the student can hear what you're playing, and that it does help.
So that's been pretty good, and yeah, it's working okay. It's good. I'm glad you're managing it as well. I
Oh,
mean,
oh,
we're going to be, but we're going to be back at college in September. College will be open, so that will be great. And I've just tried and encourage my students, as do everyone, is just use this time as positively as possible to get better, which we're all trying to do. And I think they have made the most of it. We've kept them nice and busy. So yeah, it's good. There's been a lot of discussion. There's been a group on at the Guildhall. Malcolm Edmonston, who runs
yeah,
the course, has been doing a thing called WJAZ, Jazz and
brilliant.
Conversation, every morning, which has been just fantastic for just getting people together and talking about stuff. And we've had guests, and there have been some masterclasses on Zoom too, which have been amazing. We just had Jeff Hamilton last week, which
I know, I
was
love his playing. Yeah,
super inspiring.
yeah.
So that's quite good in a way, and I think maybe it will be quite something to push forward for the future, to actually see if we can do more masterclasses on Zoom, which means that we'll be able to talk to people all around the world more easily and affordably as well. You don't have to fly people over. You don't have to put them up in hotels. You can do something on Zoom, and it really is effective. It was great. The Jeff one was incredible, but we've got other ones. Winston Clifford's doing one
Oh,
today. There are loads going on. It's really good.
yeah. I saw Winston Clifford at the Pizza Express in Dean Street not long ago. I was really blown away by his playing, and
Oh, he's gorgeous.
yeah.
Did he do any singing?
No, but I've heard. I think I heard in one of your interviews. You said he's a good singer, isn't he? But
He's a great singer. He's a fantastic singer. Oh, I love Winston. He's a
he's got
very
a
old.
really kind of expressive way of playing, hasn't he? Like kind of Brian Blade in a way. But yeah,
Very Brianish. He's
yeah,
got a beautiful pocket.
yeah,
He
yeah.
swings hard. He's creative. He's got it all going. He's a wonderful musician. Yeah, he's absolutely lovely. I'm glad he's doing a masterclass for the Guildhall. It's great.
And
I haven't seen him in ages.
with I know you mentioned Jeff Hamilton to me a lot. I love his brushwork. Is really lovely, isn't it? His brushwork. So
His brushwork's great, and he
yeah,
threw a bit of light on it. I think luckily there is starting to appear quite a few clips of Jeff talking about his stuff. Same with a lot of people actually. And what he did say, which is really good, is that he's been making a brush video. I think with
amazing,
the guys from Hudson. Um,
great.
that is going to, I mean, I'm going to be lapping that up. But he's got a concept that really I don't know much about, which is that he moves the brushes sideways to make them
I
more
think
legato.
rather than kind of very lateral
Yeah,
movements and like yeah,
he demoed that, and I haven't done that myself, but
yeah.
he showed us it, and it's so beautiful
Yeah,
and so lovely.
it's really refined. I had a little brush masterclass with the drummer Dave Hassel a while ago, and he was kind of demonstrating some of that stuff, and it's just really beautiful to watch, I think, and to listen to play as well if you can get it together. So
Yeah, I'm going to study it for sure. There are quite a lot of things that I want to get, and the
yeah,
Jeff stuff is brilliant. I've got that brush, the beautiful brush DVD that Steve
it,
Smith and Alan
and
Mishra.
with Joe Morello and the guys, and yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's gorgeous as well, and it's great to see. They all do it completely differently, but it'll be nice to see Jeff doing one in great quality for quite in depth, and I'm sure, I think that's going to be a real hit when that comes out.
yeah.
But oh, it was great. I mean, I got him to talk about how he plays his ride cymbal beat, where he got it from, all
Oh,
the rest of
amazing.
it.
Oh,
It's fantastic. Yeah, I hope he deals with that as well. But oh, it just shows the learning process carries on, and
yeah.
it was inspiring anyway, really
Yeah,
inspiring.
and just as a little side note, if I know there are probably quite a lot of young drummers watching, so if you there's also a really good Vic Firth masterclass with Dave Weckl and Peter Erskine and Russ Miller and
Did you see it,
yeah, Stanton Moore and one other guy I can't remember, but if you want to check that out,
Jojo Mayer?
yeah, Jojo Mayer, it's really amazing stuff. So check it out if you want to have a look on Vic Firth's website. So
That's really great. I watched
yeah,
it, and then the other thing that's fantastic is there was a beautiful Vic Firth masterclass with Dave Weckl
I
night
didn't see
before
that.
last.
I'll have to see that. I love Weckl. Yeah,
It was great, and Dave talks about everything.
yeah, he just knows it all, doesn't he?
He's really studied. He's erudite. He knows what he's talking about. He talks about Jeff. He talks about brushes. He
Yeah,
shows about his influences. He's such an amazingly humble guy. His playing's
yeah.
incredible. He really talks about a lot of concepts. And Joe Tester interviews and does a fantastic
Uh,
interview with him. So
yeah,
that's really great. That'll be on the Vic. That'll be on the Vic channel,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is fantastic. I really recommend that. It's beautiful. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there that you can get. It's almost too much now, so it's probably
yeah.
best to get some great information from the greats, and then just work on one beat at a time. Because especially with brushes, you've really got to play it in, haven't you?
Yeah, I think Tommy Igoe said this, that maybe just really nail one brush pattern and really get it together and get it sounding really smooth and legato on the snare drum and the kit, and then maybe spend a few months doing that and then do all the fancy stuff after. I don't know if you agree, but
I do agree with that. I've only got a few basic beats that I know I can do, and I use
yeah,
them. If you can play mid-tempo,
sure,
brush, and I usually teach. I start with the Ed Thigpen, just the
yeah,
straight
yeah,
cross beat,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is
all that,
a
yeah,
fantastic beat, and then move on to get a ballad, and I do a bit of a funny thing. I do like a circle and a figure of eight, but I don't usually teach that because that's just a thing that I started doing. I've no idea why, Tom, but
sure,
I just do the thing with just two circles, like you're pushing away.
yeah,
One, two, three,
yeah,
four,
lovely, yeah,
and then you've got the ballad, and then an up tempo with keeping the right hand in one position, and then just doing a 2 and 4 offbeat push with your left hand, a little circle, and those are three beats that are really going to get you through most things. And then practicing them for fills, groove playing the rim shot. Dave Weckl talks about all that as well, and the way he handles them is beautiful because his touch is gorgeous, and that brush touch comes with just the more hours you do, the more you're going to get your touch, as you know. So
yeah.
it's a matter of it's a bit like flying a plane. I think it's down to the hours.
Yeah, and I
Get 'em
and
in.
I and I and I I'm really I'm pleased that guys like yourself and other drummers are saying this stuff, because I think there's far too much kind of clickbait out there of all here are 5 million brush patterns you can do, and I think it's not helpful really. I think you just need to get a few together, and then you're gonna survive in a working situation, in my view.
It's good to hear you say that, Tom.
But I don't know.
You're
Yeah,
you're young, and but we're all drummers, and we all get excited by
yeah. I know
seeing.
there's nothing wrong
I
with
love
getting kind of geeky about it, and yeah,
No, I love watching drummers play fast. Who
yeah,
doesn't?
yeah.
It's really great. It's super exciting. I think it's not necessarily to be confused with getting, as you have done and lots of other people have done, is learning the stuff you need to get out there and make a living.
Yeah,
And those things are really the basic grooves. And once you've got the basic grooves down, you can go out and play with people, and that's really important. You don't need so much amazing technique. Obviously, that is important, but if you can play nice grooves, that's where it's at, and that's the way I feel. It's obviously the way you feel. It's great. I wouldn't say it's refreshing to hear that coming from young people, because people like you
yeah.
and lots of young players are wise. They know
Thanks.
what's going on. They understand what great music is. They understand how it goes, and it's just that we're in a very fortunate position now that we're in an internet age, and you can watch whatever you want. You might want to watch just guys who are playing really complicated time signature stuff all the time, and there is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
It's totally great, but you may not be called to play that on a gig.
yeah. Oh, okay. That's all really great. So I thought, yeah. So I thought what we do, Ralph, is obviously won't go through your whole career because we'd be here all day, but maybe because
We'd be here for about 30 seconds, I think, Tom. But anyway.
we'd be ordering our Christmas dinner and then.
Oh, blimey! I'm looking forward to that. Actually, that'll be.
I thought what I'd like to ask you though is I thought we could start from your college days. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you studied classical percussion at the Guildhall. Is that right?
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, study classical. It's just back in 1982, the only place that you could do an undergrad course on drums
Yeah.
was Leeds College of Music, and I took a decision to stay in London because I already was working in London. I mean, I didn't have a fully formed career or anything, but I had gigs,
Okay.
and I was advised by a wonderful drummer who's a great old friend of mine from back then, who kind of gave me some great advice and mentored me. Alan Savage, he's a great guy,
Yeah, I've heard of him.
and
Yeah.
fantastic drummer. And he said to me, "Look, you're in London, you've got gigs. It would make more sense if you stayed in London." And although I very would have very much liked to have gone to Leeds, actually. I took the decision to stay in London, so I needed somewhere to study. And because I'd already learned some classical, I just sort of polished my classical playing up enough to fool them. Well, I wouldn't say fool them. Probably they took pity on me when I auditioned, and they offered me a place. So I was really lucky to go and do that, and it was a great thing to do. I must say, I did feel a great yearning to play drums while I was there, and I did. I was bringing my drums in and transcribing Steve Gadd things, and still playing and doing lots of gigs. But it was just an experience that I went through, and I really cherished it just to study. I adore classical music, and the respect I've got and the discipline is good. It's good for reading. It's good for working with conductors. It's good for touch. It's good for a lot of things. So I got a lot out of it. I would recommend anyone, if they want to do it, give it a go. It's people are doing that now. You've got classical majors at the Guildhall who play very, very good drums, and I've got classical majors at the college who play extremely good drums. So it's all out there for people. If you like classical, by all means do it. At least now you can do classical and drums, which is good.
Yeah. So, what were the challenges of playing music which required you to read at such kind of sight read at such a high level? Was that something you had to kind of get your head around a little bit, or was it quite straightforward for you? Or
Um, I didn't honestly, Tom. I didn't have the worldliness or experience or knowledge to realise what even levels were when
okay.
I was back at college or
Yeah.
anything. I was really lucky that I played in a rehearsal band run by a fantastic guy who was my teacher called Brian Booth,
Okay.
and he introduced me to playing big band, and I learned so much in that band,
Great.
and it was an amazing opportunity. So then I was kind of already reading relatively easy charts, which was a great way of doing it. So then when I went on to do more complicated stuff, I was doing things at college that were more challenging. There was a big band, an unofficial big band run by the soon-to-be leader of the jazz course, Scott Stroman. I played in that band.
Yeah.
And then there were other things that I was doing. And I didn't really realize that I was kind of developing my skill, but I was. So when I came out of college and I started going into the real world, I did get a few situations that were quite, yeah, they were quite challenging. My first West End show that I depped in, which was Evita. Um, I mean, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard music,
And you were
and
playing you were playing tune percussion for that, or drums, or
no, drums.
sorry.
Drums. There
Yeah.
was a percussion chair in that. I was playing drums.
Yeah.
I have done occasional. I used to do occasional deps for wonderful old friend Roger Harrison, who was playing percussion in Starlight Express, and I used to dep in Starlight Express on drums and then percussion for Roger when they were desperate.
Yeah.
But I can't really play that stuff anymore. But yeah, I suppose the reading level. I think if you do enough of it and you get used to it, then your level improves, and then you keep improving, and gradually you get to a point when you can cope with most things. If you put me into a symphony orchestra section and then you ask me to read some complicated stuff, I'm all over the place. I just can't do it. So, I cannot read single line rhythms like any of the symphonic players can do. They are on a whole other level. But drum kit players, and what I've been doing for the last 30 years is more to do with pattern based stuff that we already know. So it's a different way of reading, really. It's more to do with interpretation, so it's looser, and most of the stuff that we get is really simple. So that's how I get through it, Tom, more than
Yeah, and
anything.
I think that my listeners will be interested to know, was there anything on that Evita show you were doing that, like, either kind of dramistically or musically, that was particularly challenging for you to kind of work on a little bit, or?
There was. I mean, there's a song in Evita which I then later went and did Evita the movie, and I had to record it actually. There's one in 7/8 which is kind of fast called "And the Money Kept Rolling In,"
Sure.
and the groove is not difficult, but there's a funny little weird broken up section in the middle, which I think it goes into sort of 5 or 3 or something, and it's just very odd, doesn't fall under the hands. It's got pushes in it, and I don't even know if there's a change of time signature, but I found it really tricky. And I know when we were doing the recording the session for that, I had to say to the guys, you'll just have to give me 10 minutes with this. We had to just stop the session. I had to just look at it on my own and practice it, because I couldn't sight read it. So there was a tricky bit in there, a few little tricky bits that I found challenging, but I worked on them, and I got through it, luckily. Most of it is just standard stuff, but I think with reading, a lot of people want to know about reading, and you've been through the process as well. Most of it is about if you find something that you can't read, just work on it, isn't it? There's no pressure. If you make a mistake, there's no pressure. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I think when I was at music college, there was some of the lecturers that weren't. They were exaggerating a little bit, because they were saying stuff like, if you're in a session at Abbey Road and you get it wrong first time, they'll chuck you out the room or something, and stuff like that. And
I can vouch for that. I have done that, Tom.
Maybe that's happened to you.
It has happened to me, but they didn't. They certainly didn't. I've messed it up. I have been with an orchestra at Abbey Road, and I've got it wrong many times.
But you kind of just you kind of just have a joke about it, don't you? I guess, but as long as you don't get it wrong too many times. But
the bottom line is, if you keep getting it wrong,
that's the problem,
then either the music is too complicated, or you have to change it. But there's not really, most of the time, there's not really that heavy pressure.
Okay.
And most of the time, if you can't play something, people will just help you to get through it. The issue is, if you find yourself on a big session at Abbey Road Studios, there's going to be a good reason that you're there, and if you're there, you'll be cut slack. It's okay. I'm always saying to students, don't put yourself under undue pressure. Relax. Find a way through the music. If there's something you can't read, work it out. Sometimes I look at a really mundane rhythm, and my brain just won't compute it. Do you get that? Sometimes it's a bit like
I get that panic moment that us all drummers get, but then I try, and because I've got quite a mathematical brain, I kind of just write it out, or I just kind of try and think logically about how the rhythm should sound if I'm in a music lecture or something. So
I'm glad to hear that you get that as well, because
all the time.
I'm not the only one. I get it. I look at something, I'm like, what is that? I can't play that.
Yeah.
It's really weird. It's like my brain refuses to make it happen. But I do that. I do exactly the same thing. I write it out, and sometimes I even write something out with 4 semiquavers over each beat.
Yeah, that's
just so I can do it.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with that. Anything to help us get through it, I suppose.
Yeah, I think when I was at music college is the tutors were quite helpful, like having that kind of invisible bar line between, like, say between the like halfway through a 4/4 bar, and that really helped me to kind of internalize. And I know it sounds really kind of basic, but it helped me anyway. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting process. I mean, I do talk about reading. I wonder how you approach it, Tom, because I've got this thing that I think that a lot of reading, most reading with music, like a lot of things, is pictorial.
Sure.
So I quite often, like reading a word, we see a word and we know what that word is without having to break it up into individual letters. Do you have a thing where you can look at phrases or even um, uh, rhythms, bars, phrases, or even pages of music and recall them pictorially? Can
Yeah,
you do
yeah.
that?
It's a great question. So like, so what I do is, as from some of the drum teachers I've had really, and I'm kind of learning more on my own. But if it's if I can sort of sing it, if it's like page 38 of Syncopation by Ted Reed, the first line goes do dat do dat 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 gat do dat dat do dat do dat dat do dat. So you're kind of phrasing it like a trumpet player. So I prefer to do that rather than go one and a three four, because I feel it's a bit soulless if you're counting it mathematically. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, it is. But you know, when you just sang that to me,
yeah.
can you see it in front of you like you're reading it?
Yeah, I can see it like I'm reading a book, which I've had to put a lot of endless hours to get to that stage. But I guess that's what we're all trying to do, isn't it? So,
Yeah, it's. I was interested to see how you do it, because I think that with me, without realizing it, I often, the teachers have said to me, "Look at the phrase, then look away."
yeah,
You know, if I'm doing a TV show and I've got the first thing to play, I try and look at the phrase, then I look at the groove, and then I try and look away, and then I can see it in my mind's eye. And I think if I can help people to develop that, I think getting your head out the music so you can recall the music is really good, because I think it's kind of what we do. And often when I'm writing out a chart, I don't know if you have the same thing, once I've written out a chart, it's a bit like writing an essay at school or something, it kind of goes in. I
yeah,
can see it, you
yeah.
know.
I'm
uh,
not quite as I'm probably not quite as quick as you are, but I usually it takes me about 3 or 4 run throughs in the rehearsal, and then I've nailed it, and it's like cool, let's just get on and play the gig. So,
that's good.
but I guess it takes a lifetime to get it to where I know you're a great sight reader, but it's for me it takes a while, but it's yeah.
Oh no, I mean, I'm a workable reader.
Right.
I'm not great by any means,
Okay.
but I can just, I work things out, and
Yeah.
then I
Sure.
just try and, if you can, I think if you can memorize something, or if you can start practicing memorization from when you're young, I think it can really help. And
Yeah.
I tend to play more from coming from, I don't, if I can avoid reading it, I will do subconsciously. I'll almost play a thing a couple of times and then almost try not to look at the chart if I can.
Yeah.
And if I can do that, it's better. It comes from the heart. It comes from the, I don't know if it's the left brain or the right brain, but it comes from your creative side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
Sorry. Yeah. Go on.
develop reading where you're still coming from the creative side. And I think a lot of the time I look at a chart and I don't necessarily take it too seriously. Probably some of my trumpet player friends will say, yeah, because you
Yeah.
keep messing it up, Ralph. But, it's more about just trying to play it from the heart. And then the reading is just an aid. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and I just what I want to give, if I may, give credit to my drum teacher at London College of Music, Chris Barron, because he really helped me with all this in terms of kind of interpreting charts and knowing what to play musically. So thanks to Chris for that. But yeah,
Oh, Chris. Well, Chris, of course.
from like
I
the
forgot that Chris. I forgot that Chris was your teacher, but
yeah,
Chris, of course,
yeah,
is an old college mate of mine,
yeah,
and
from the Guildhall, yeah,
yeah, and I mean, Chris is an absolutely
yeah,
phenomenal
yeah,
all-round percussion player
he's
and
brilliant, isn't he?
drummer,
Yeah, yeah,
and I mean, he's one of the best sight readers I've ever encountered. That guy is truly dangerous,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
he's great, isn't he?
Yeah, I remember when I saw him with the St Lawrence Orchestra depping for them, and I was a bit scared by how amazing his playing was, and how he was he just sort of he could play everything perfectly and stuff. So
Chris has got an amazing natural talent. He was one
yeah,
of the guys I think at college who
yeah,
probably could achieve more
yeah,
than anyone else
yeah. I
with
guess you
doing.
always get those guys, don't you? So
Yeah, but with doing less practice than anyone else.
Yeah, he was just on the golf
Yeah.
course or playing. I know
I know, and he's a great golfer as well, isn't he, Tom?
he's one of the best in the country, apparently. No.
What? I mean, he's got like an under 10 handicap, hasn't he?
Yeah, he had a lesson with Tiger Woods last week. He told me, but no.
Oh, it wouldn't.
No, sorry, Chris.
Oh goodness me! That reminds me about that joke. Do you know the one about Tiger Woods and Stevie Wonder?
Yeah.
And Stevie Wonder, they meet up, and Stevie Wonder says to Tiger, he says, "Oh, Tiger, he said, I play a bit of golf myself,
Yeah.
And Tiger says, "Do you?" He says, "Yeah, I'm pretty good, to be honest." He says, "Are you?" He says, "Yeah." He said, "Do you fancy a round? We should have a game."
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah, definitely. I'd love to." He says, "Well," he says, "Look, I'll tell you what. Why don't we put a little bit of money on it?" He says, "Yeah, okay." He says, "Well, let's." He says, "I'll put $1 million down that I can beat you." And Tiger says, $1 million? He says, "Yeah." He says, "Okay then." Stevie says, "Great. Pick a night."
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me if Stevie Wonder actually plays golf, because he can do everything else. He's
not a bad drummer, is he? So.
Oh, he's a genius. He's a living genius.
I love his playing on it. I love his playing on Innovisions. The way on that album, he really swings with his drumming. I don't know what you think, but
he's one of my favorite drummers. He's really one of my influences.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was young, I never realized it was Stevie playing drums on those things, and then when you hear it, it's like, I mean, the guy's a living genius. So
I don't think he gets enough credit for his drumming because he's not known as a drummer, but if that makes sense. But I don't know.
Well, he does from me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think from average, guys who don't get the chance to read credits.
Yeah, exactly.
But most people who know, I mean, I always hear his drumming. I love that beautiful swing and that gorgeous looseness, the way he plays. I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, if I had to pick one living musician, he'd be my guy. I think, he's my favorite living musician. Probably him and Herbie Hancock. Just, they cannot be touched.